Hello and welcome to my channel In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne and today I have a list of books added to my TBR because booktube. It's no secret that Jane Austen July is one of my favorite months of the year in terms of booktube, although this is the first time I'm officially celebrating it with all the booktube people. But I love Jane Austen and I love Jane Austen July. And I have been really enjoying watching everyone's Jane Austen July related videos and the recommendations that they have been making. And those recommendations have made my books that I want to read related to Jane Austen considerably longer than it already is. So I wanted to share some of the books that I've recently been adding to my TBR for Jane Austen July. Not that I'm going to read this month. I may read it at some point this year. I may read it for next Jane Austen July. I am just making note of these books, putting them on my mental TBR, putting some of them on my Goodreads TBR, keeping my eye out for them, and planning to read them at some point. So first of all, Art at the Book Odyssey. He had a really great TBR list for this Jane Austen July, but he in particular mentioned two books that one I'd heard of and the other I hadn't, and is a whole series, so that's cool. The first one is nonfiction, Jane Austen and the Clergy by Irene Collins, and I have seen that and have been interested in it, but when he was talking about it, I was even much more interested in it and decided to definitively put that on my TBR. So that one is about Jane Austen and her experience with and history with the clergy in England, and how, you know, she talks about it a lot in her books. A lot of her characters are clergy. Her husband, not her husband, her dad and some of her brothers were in the clergy. So there's just a lot of connection there. So I think that would be a really interesting nonfiction book to read. And then he mentioned a series by Tirzah Price, which is mysteries related to the books that Austen wrote. So the first one is Pride and Premeditation. That's the first one in the series, but there are others that go with her, correspond to her other novels. And so those looked really interesting. I'm not sure if they're cozy mysteries. I got the feeling they were probably kind of like more like cozy mysteries, but I'm not really 100% sure about that. But whatever. It looked very interesting, sounded very interesting, and I definitely want to try those at some point. And then Blatantly Bookish, who is one of the hosts of Jane Austen July. She had some fabulous recommendations, not just from this year, but from other years that she has hosted this. And she has a couple different videos on the subject, so she really loves Jane Austen. So she's got a lot of Jane Austen related fun stuff to read. I'm going to mention three, but there are others that she has mentioned that I would also want to read. One is Jane Austen's Wardrobe by Riley Davidson. And this one, another booktuber also mentioned and showed pictures of it. That was Ellie at Ellie's Cozy Chronicles. She showed pictures of the inside of the book. First of all, I love the history of fashion. I'm not like a fashionista kind of person. Like, I like to look nice, but I don't really follow trends or whatever. Most of the time I find trends ridiculous and I roll my eyes at them. But I do love observing trends and looking at historic fashion trends. I read a couple of books about it. I always, when I'm reading a book set a particular time period, I look up what the fashions were of the time so I can picture it accurately in my mind. I just love that. I love the history of fashion. So I would really love to read and flip through Jane Austen's Wardrobe. Looks like a fantastic book. And then The Murder of Mr. Wickham by Claudia Gray is on my TBR. And this is where I heard it from. I heard it from Blatantly Bookish on her channel. There is, again, a whole series, and the third book recently came out in this series, and it's based on Jane Austen's characters, I think, after the books are set. And again, they are mysteries, and it just sounds fun and interesting. So I definitely want to read them. I've heard mixed reviews. Some people who have similar reading tastes to mine don't really love them, so I don't know. We'll see. But I at least want to try them. And then The Heiress by Molly Greely, I have also seen on someone else's channel, but I couldn't for the life of me remember who it was, and I couldn't find the video where I had seen it. So someone else had already mentioned this and caught my eye. So apologies to whoever that was out there. But anyways, Blatantly Bookish also mentioned it, and I know there's at least one other book by Molly Greely that is a retelling or related to an Austen novel. But this one is The Heiress. which is about Lady Catherine de Bourgh's daughter, Anne. And so the cover looks amazing. And the other book by Molly Greely, the title that I cannot remember at the moment, also, the covers just look fabulous. So I'm really interested in reading them. I think they might be YA. I'm not 100% sure about that. And I don't always love YA, but I at least want to give it a try. Then Ellie at Ellie's Cozy Chronicles, she has a couple of really great Jane Austen videos that she put out recently. And she mentioned a couple books that I really want to read. One is a vintage book, although it has been reprinted, so you can get a new copy of it. And that is Jane Austen, Her Homes and Her Friends by Constance Hill and Ellen Helen. It was originally written in 1902, and it is about these two sisters who went and visited Jane Austen's homes, places where she lived in England, and then they just wrote a book about it and her friends and the people that she lived. So it's a unique way of telling the life story of Jane Austen through the focus of her home and her friends. And I love that it's vintage. It was written in 1902, so I love that perspective that time gives on it. And one sister wrote it, I believe, and the other sister either illustrated or took the pictures. I'm not sure, but that one I'm really, really interested in finding and reading. And then a retelling of Persuasion. Well, it's really about Austen, I think, but so it's kind of like combined. But anyway, it's called The Persuasion of Miss Jane Austen by Shannon Winslow. I have read some other retellings by Shannon Winslow and have enjoyed her take on Austen stories. She will write retellings based on various characters. So I know I've read her before and enjoyed her books, but I've not read that particular one yet. So that's on my radar now. And then she had a copy that she showed of, okay, this fly wants my coffee. Seriously, I didn't think flies drank coffee. Go away. Thank you. Anyways, the illustrated letters. I have a wonderful copy of Jane Austen's letters, but it's just the text. This one, and she showed pictures of it, is some chosen letters from Jane Austen and illustrated beautifully with watercolor drawings and with other sketches and with photographs and things like that. Just beautifully illustrated and formatted hardcover coffee table type of book with the text being Jane Austen's letters, and that just looks fabulous. I think I'm definitely going to need to get my hands on that one. Mitzi Reads and Writes had some great suggestions for Jane Austen July, and she mentioned a book that I think I may have heard of, but I really am very interested in reading it after she talked about it, and that is What Kitty Did Next by Carrie Kablean, I think is the last name. And that is about Kitty, Lizzie and Jane's younger sister, and what happened after the time of Pride and Prejudice. So, and then Naomi's Bookshelf, she mentioned, and this many people have mentioned, so it's not just her, but I really want to read this one. I have since other people mentioned it, and Naomi put this on her TBR, I believe, for July, and that is The Other Bennet Sister by Janice Hadlow. So if you've read it, let me know, because I know a lot of people have read that one. It was a very buzzy when it first came out, I think, and recently, but let me know if you think that I would like it. It's definitely been on my radar, but now I am more definitively going to put that on my TBR. And then Protagonist Pub, she mentioned a nonfiction book that just sounded very interesting to me, and that was Jane Austen's Best Friend, The Life and Influence of Martha Lloyd by Zoe Wheddon. Martha Lloyd was a great friend of Jane Austen and her sister Cassandra, and they even lived together at certain points in their lives, very, very close their whole life. So I would love to read a biography about her, and that gives context on Jane Austen as well. It just sounds very interesting. Christy A. Cole mentioned an Austen-inspired rom-com that just looked super cute, and that is Love and Loathing by Gigi Blume. It looks like a super fun summer beach read, so I added that to my TBR. And then Shatona Havig mentioned two books that are very related, and one is The Prayers of Jane Austen, which I did not know that there was a published beautiful copy of Jane Austen's prayers that she wrote for her family to read or to say at mealtimes and at evening times, their evening devotions together. And I have read some of those prayers in isolation, but I would love to have this beautiful copy of the book and just read all of her prayers from that book. There also is a devotional called Praying with Jane by Rachel Dodge that is a devotional based on those prayers, and that would just seems like a fantastic devotion that would be great to have. So I really want to read that as well, and I added both of those. Well, I added The Prayers of Jane Austen to my Amazon wish list, and Praying with Jane I'm going to add to my TBR. And finally, there is another one that someone mentioned, but I cannot for the life of me think who it was, and I can't find the video where I saw it. And that is about, the title was something about along the lines of Jane Austen's transatlantic sister. And it was letters between Jane Austen and her sister-in-law, who ended up, I believe, in the States. So that is a fascinating idea to me. I think it's just the letters that they exchanged, or some of them, and perhaps the biography of her sister-in-law. That one is really intriguing to me. So if you mentioned that on your video, please let me know so I can add you to the description box and give you credit for mentioning that book to me. And then I have one more that I want to mention, and my phone is complaining that it's hot, so I don't want to go inside and grab it, and I forgot to grab it. But I have a copy of a book called Charlotte by Julia Barrett, which I picked up at a library book sale, and is a retelling, I guess a retelling and a completion of Sanditon. And the main character, I believe, is called Charlotte in that story that Jane wrote. And so that's the name of the book, Charlotte. And it's just reimagining Sanditon and finishing up the story. So I'm interested in reading that. That's also on my TBR. So there you have it. All of the Austen that's been added to my TBR because BookTube. Thanks, BookTube. You guys are the best. And I will see you later. Bye.